Welcome back, boys and girls. Today we are going to be moving on to the next step, which will be the third day of our Radial Design project. Today we are going to be using a piece of thin foam to make our printing plate. The design that we made last time will go right on top of this printing plate. So you can put your plate right on your design right on top of the foam. Sometimes it is helpful to put a little piece of tape so that your design doesn't move around. In fact, I think I will do that. But you want to put your tape somewhere that it's not going to be in the way of your design. So I think what I'm going to do is actually put it right up here on the corner and just fold it over, and that should keep it in place enough for me to begin tracing. If you do not have a piece of foam at home, you can use foam paper plates. Sometimes there's foam trays that come in different grocery items, or you can always come up to school and I will have foam cut for you that you can pick up from school. So today what we will do is we're going to use a pencil. We don't want our pencil to be super sharp. We want it to have a rounded nose on it so that it doesn't actually tear a hole through our paper and into our foam. So we want it to be a blunted, sharpened pencil. So to start tracing, I'm going to go right over the top of my lines here, but I'm going to press pretty hard. Not so hard that I break my pencil or tear my paper, but hard enough that my lines go through and down into the foam below. So I will start here. I'm going to drag my pencil, pushing moderately hard. And when I lift this up, you can see the indentation that's left. So I'm going to trace all of these lines, making sure. It is a little bit tough to do, but we're going to do our best to stay on our lines. And we're going to go over all of our details. If you find that your design is too crowded or too close together, it is okay to skip some of the parts of your design in order to space things out. So if I were to have another zigzag line really close to this one, I would probably not trace it. I would skip it and just move on to my next line so that everything is spaced nice and far apart. So if I lift up and kind of take a peek, you can see my designs are being pressed down into that foam. I'm going to keep going here. You can probably also see by now where the radial part of our radial design is coming in. So our design is going to be in the shape of a circle. Right now it's a quarter of a circle. But when we are finished with this, it will be all one circle. Just keep tracing. This is a little time consuming, especially if you're taking your time, going slow. I'm kind of rushing because I want you guys to have plenty of time to work on your own artwork. So this will probably take us all of our art time for this day, because we are going to trace this design not once, but twice. Once, the first time, the design tracing is over the paper like this. But then our next step is we're going to take that off this piece of paper. I've got my tape on here, so I got to pull that off. We're going to take off our design paper, and we're going to trace over it a second time, this time directly on the foam. And what happens now is those lines get pressed really nice and deep, and that's going to make our printing process really crisp and clean. Again, I don't want to push so hard that I'm tearing the foam. I'm just pressing hard enough that I make a nice deep indentation of my design. Sometimes it's easier to drag your pencil instead of pushing it forward on the foam. Sometimes when I try to push forward, it gets caught up and it kind of wants to tear. So I find it's easier if you actually move your pencil down towards you instead of trying to push up. Just a hint if you're having trouble getting your pencil moving. And you might be noticing now how if you had designs that were close together, that were crowded, that those things would start to kind of mush together. Which is why I said it's okay if you need to skip over parts of your design in order to make it a nice clean design. So you can really tell the difference here between the ones I've done a second time and the ones that I only did once. If you only do them once, it really is not deep enough to make a good stamp for your printing template. Boys and girls, I can tell you that my wrist is really starting to get tired from having to press hard. So if you need to give your wrist a break, it is okay to stop and kind of shake your hands out a little bit, because it is hard work on those fine motor muscles in your hands. Okay, but there we have it. Now it is done. The very last thing today that we need to do is we are actually going to use not a pencil. We want to use a marker of some sort. It can be any kind of marker, just so that it doesn't press down into our foam like the pencil does. But I'm going to turn my paper over, and I need to identify where the center of my circle is going to be, my radial design. And I wanted this to look like a flower that's going to go all the way around at the center of my design. So this is my center, so I'm going to pinch it with my fingers, and I'm going to flip it over, and where my fingers are, I'm going to put an arrow right there, so that later when we are using this as a stamp, I know where the center of my circle is going to be. We also need to put our name on it, and you can do that with your marker as well. Do not press hard, because if you press hard, it will show up in your design, and you do not want that to happen. This will be our final step for today, but look, even if I press these together, you can see how our radial design is coming along. So we are going to keep going around and around and around with this one printing plate. We're going to have a beautiful radial design.